So I'm gonna go through the uncommons, the rares, and the commons, and I'm just gonna skip over cards that don't seem very relevant, as in like mostly the commons. But I have them open just in case, because there have been cases where commons have been playable in standard, for example. Well, I'm mostly reviewing these for standard to be fair, so I guess we can start now. Um, Against All Odds is 4 mana sorcery, which is already a bad sign. Choose one or both. Okay, interesting. Exile artifacts or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you get a sorcery speed flicker on an artifact or creature, which is usually not very good. And then return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. From your graveyard to the battlefield. So one or both. Okay, so we have Recommission, which is a 2 mana. I think it only returns target creature though, with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this kind of effect would be valued about 2, especially for sorcery speed. And then the flicker is valued at about like 1.5 maybe. So it's a little bit overcosted for sorcery. And flickering at sorcery is not great as well. The thing is, I'm assuming you're playing a lot of enter the battlefield effects. So essentially, this is a good card for its value, as long as you're playing the deck that would play a bunch of artifacts and creatures that enter the battlefield and do something like draw a card or I don't know, whatever you want to play. But yeah, this will obviously not see play in standard. I don't think. Yeah, no, there's no way this sees play in standard. That's a cool card. That's about all I have to say about it. Annex Sentry. So 3 mana toxic 1/1/4. Toxic is players dealt combat damage by this creature also get a poison counter. When they get 10 poison counters, they lose the game. When this creature enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until Annex Sentry leaves the battlefield. So Skycave, Apparition / Brutal Cathar, but only for cheap creatures. But it's also 1/4, so it's pretty good against aggro. I could see this being a very good anti-aggro card. Except aggro kind of sucks right now. The fact that it's an artifact as well is... I'm trying to think if that's an upside or a downside. I would say it's probably neutral, because if you're boarding this in, it's probably against like a white creature aggro deck, so it probably doesn't matter. Unless they're playing Laron, and you have other stuff to destroy. In that case, they will board in Laron. I don't think the Toxic's too relevant on this. It's hard to evaluate how good Toxic is, so maybe the Toxic one is actually a huge bonus and I'm not realizing it. That's unfortunate. But I guess I'll have to come back to it. Well, I probably won't, but the context of Toxic in this set is pretty relevant. So it's might change my opinion of it, but I think it's pretty unplayable unless aggro takes over, like white aggro decks. Or even red, to be honest. But we'll see. Depending on if those decks are good or not, this will be a sideboard card, maybe. Apostle of Invasion, 6 mana, Phyrexian Angel, flyer, so 4/4 flyer for 6, and corrupt as long as your opponent, well, an opponent, but I guess for us it doesn't matter. As long as your opponent has 3 or more poison counters, it has double strike, so yeah, it's pretty bad. It's kind of vanilla, not much to talk about. Bladed Ambassador, 2 mana, 3/1, and it enters the battlefield with an oil counter, and you can remove an oil counter for 1. And it gets indestructible until end of turn. Yeah, pretty unplayable. It's just worse than the Guardian of New Benalia or whatever that 2/2 creature is. It's like way worse. Jeez. At charge of the Mites, 3 mana instant. Choose one. You can deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. Or you can make 2/1/1s. 2/1/1 artifact creature tokens with toxic 1, and this creature can't block. So flexibility is nice. The effect of dealing damage equal to the number of creatures you control is usually costed about 1, 1.5, maybe at most. at instant speed. And then making 2/1/1s is about 2 mana. Maybe a little weaker than that, probably like 1.5 as well. So it's kind of costed correctly, I would say, for the flexibility. But I guess the problem is you're only getting one of the effects. So you're definitely paying a price for the flexibility. But it's kind of nice that you have removal and board presence all in one. I doubt this will see play, but it has like some sort of potential because usually flexible instant speed spells that can generate board presence can potentially see play in certain specific metagames, but probably not a standard metagame where this would probably be pretty good against like a controlling deck. But I don't think control is very good. I don't think it will be. Devotion, +2/+2 if that creature has talks to draw a card. I don't think there's a reason to talk about that for standard. Crawling Chorus, 1 mana, 1/1, Toxic 1. When it dies, it creates a 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact token with Toxic 1 in this creature hand block. This is kind of interesting. If there was going to be a sacrifice deck, then this is not bad. Especially because the second creature that comes out of this, the 1/1, is an artifact. Maybe in some sort of like Orzhov sacrifice deck, maybe, but that's pushing it, I think. But cards like these have some potential to see play, maybe, especially because both sides have toxic, so it's kind of relevant that way that it's a 1-drop that needs to be blocked or removed in some way. So it's not terrible. The fact that both sides have toxic, I think, is a huge bonus. So not bad. Duelist of Deep Faith, a 2 mana 2/2 toxic 1. As long as it's your turn, it has first strike. Not much to talk about there. Elish Norn. It's a card that was spoiled a long time ago. 5 mana 4/7 Vigilance, and if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. And permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponent controls to trigger. So triggered ability. Okay, so it's kind of redundant, but this essentially gives you double ETBs and stops your opponent ETBing, right? Or static effects that, for example, like like gain life when a creature enters the battlefield. That won't proc and all that stuff. But I don't think this is the most relevant part of this card. I guess what's most relevant is the fact that it's a 4/7. So it could be pretty good against like some kind of red decks that don't have access to black, if that's ever a thing. But problem is right now it's just dominated by black and red, so they're gonna have black for this kind of a creature, and they'll have counter spells potentially as well if we're assuming that Grixis is still at the top, which it might or might not be. It's hard to say. I don't know. On its face, it's a powerful card. Will it see play? I don't think so, but I don't know. It has potential. It's definitely very powerful. It's just not very good against Grixis. So we'll find out. I mean, it honestly, if I had to guess, it has a higher chance of seeing play than not seeing play. So I'll just say that. I think it will probably see play somewhere. Just because it's really powerful if you build around it. Flensing Raptor. Flying Toxic 1 when enters the battlefield. Okay, so that's another random common that I said I wasn't going to review if they were kind of too straightforward. This is also in that category. 4 mana. You get a 2/2 and you attach this equipment to it. So you get a 2/2 and the equipment has flying and creatures you control that are equipped get +1/+0. So this is synergy with other equipments. But yeah, probably not relevant. Incisor Glider, 2 mana, 1/3 flyer, and it's not playable in standard. Indoctrination Attendant, a 4 mana, 3/4 with Toxic 1. And when it enters the battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, you get a 1/1 Phyrexian. I'm gonna call. Oh shit! I need to deactivate my alerts. Give me a second. probably should put that in the title as well. 1 second. All right. So yeah, I'm going to call these 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might tokens. I'm going to call them just Might tokens, so we don't have to keep reading the whole thing. So yeah, this card's not playable, but yeah, it's a common. Infested Flesh Cutter, 2 mana equipment, and equipped creature gets +2/+0, and whenever it attacks, you make a 1/1 Might token. Equip 3, yeah, terrible. Jeez. A 2 mana 1/1 double striking toxic 1. Ooh. Potentially can dish out 2 toxic counters. Poison counters, I mean. Which is maybe valuable. 2 mana 1/1 double strike is obviously costed correctly, and the toxic is just a bonus, so you really care about poison counters? Maybe, but I don't think white. I don't know. So far, I don't really have a reason to think that white would really strive off of toxic, and to the point that they'd play like kind of a worse 2-drop than what they have access to right now. So probably not playable. Kemba, the Ka Enduring Cat Cleric 2/2, 2 mana 2/2. So when it enters the battlefield, or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 equipment you control to that creature. So when this enters, it gets to attach an equipment, but it's a 2-drop, so you don't really want to play it on 2, which is kind of weird. Equipped creature, unless you have a 1-mana equipment, but that doesn't seem to be the case right now. Equipped creatures get +1/+1, create a 2/2 cat creature token for 5 mana activated ability. So this is pretty much a draft bomb, but that's about it, right? Unless equipment builds are actually good. Does the hammer, the 1 mana 8/8 hammer in the different format? Yeah. Sure. +8/+8. What is it? +10/+10? I don't remember. Same card. I opened again. Whatever. Lightbringer. Ward 2. 3 mana 3/2. So ward is usually good on aggressive creatures. And as long as it's equipped, it gets +1/+1. So it could be a 4/3. It's also a cat, so it has the curve with the previous card. If you have a 1 mana equipment, which is kind of hard to do. And that equipment wouldn't be that powerful in general, but honestly, even if it's not that powerful, this being a 4/3, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. There's definitely, well, 2 cards so far that really support equipment, so maybe if there's a little bit more. Mandible Justice here. Maybe. 2 mana artifact creature with lifelink. It's a 2/1. And whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Probably pretty bad. Maran Bardish. 5 mana equipment, but you get a 2/2 because of the 4 Maraudin effects. So you're getting an equipment that gives +2/+1 in vigilance, equipped to a 2/2, so you're getting a 4/3 with vigilance. Might Overseer. 4 mana Phyrexian Soldier. It's 4 mana 4/2. It has first strike, and as long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have first strike. And for 3 and a Phyrexian white mana, Phyrexian mana, you can pay the color or 2 life. So it could be 3 mana activated ability where you pay 2 life and you make a 1/1 might. That's a lot of mana to make a 1/1. Limited bomb though. Probably not playable in standard. Mondrak, Glory Dominus. 4 mana 4/4 legendary creature. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And for 1 and 2 Phyrexian white mana, sacrifice 2 other artifacts and put an indestructible counter on Mondrak. Jeez. So you can get a 4/4 indestructible for 1 mana and 4 life by sacrificing 2 other tokens. Is what you want to do, at least. I don't know, 4 mana, 4/4 a lot of indestructible in this set. Maybe that's what pushes white over the edge. Maybe this is actually the return of control. If there's too much indestructible, I do think Grixis will suffer a little bit, although they have a lot of sacrifice effects, so maybe not. But if they can't find a way to adapt, then it'll really push white with this Exile and Wandering Emperor. So maybe we can have a meta shakeup if enough indestructible things pop up, but for now, I wouldn't say that's too likely. Norn's Wellspring. Whenever a creature you control dies, you scry 1 and put an oil counter on a Norn Wellspring, and when you remove 2, you can pay 1 and tap this artifact to remove 2 oil counters from it, and you draw a card. So for 2 situational, it's too slow as well. And it's an artifact, so I think all of those things combined mean that's probably not a good card. Pretty good and limited, I guess. Maybe. Yeah, we can skip this. Ossification. 2 mana aura, and enchant basic land you control. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. But it's on a land. A basic land, though. Wait, this is really good. And it's an aura? Yeah, I guess that's relevant for like fetching stuff. And maybe synergistical. I don't know. This seems really strong to me. Wait, this is really, really insane. It has no requirement. Wait, is it? But the fact that it has to be put on a basic land is kind of tough. But if you can play this in your deck and reliably cast it, then this is probably one of the best removal spells that we have in white. Just because it's way better than. I mean, it can hit anything. It has no. Yeah, it has no prerequisite on CMC, which is usually something that white has. And white has terrible ways, like white has terrible planeswalker interaction and fateful absence because you're giving them a card, and usually planeswalker decks thrive off of card advantage. You don't really want to do that. But yeah, this is really good. I feel like some decks you'll face some colors that just can't really remove enchantments, and in that case, this will be really powerful. Like this will 100% be really powerful. Like against black decks, like against Grixis, I feel like this is really solid. If you can cast it. The problem is, can you cast it? That's the issue. Like in mono white, you would probably play lay down arms anyways. So is this too redundant? In mono white aggro, sure. Maybe there's some kind of other deck that uses a few basics. I don't know. It's hard to say because the basic requirement is annoying, but we have triomes as well, so pretty difficult to say if this is going to be played or not, but the power's there. That's all I have to say about it. And it will see play if it's easy enough to cast, but that's the question, right? Phyrexian Vindicator is a 4 white, so 4 mana, but 4 white, 5/5 flyer, which is insane. Now the question is, will this be played in mono white? If damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent that damage, and when damage is prevented, it deals that much damage to any other target. So essentially, you play this against a red deck and they just auto lose. Okay, so they're trying to completely push. So they're trying to completely push green and red out of the metagame with this. And well, it depends if white is viable. This is super weird. This card is absolutely degenerate. Like way too powerful. Like I'm a little bit disappointed that they're printing cards like this because if the metagame aligns with it, then it completely shuts off certain colors, which is kind of bad card design. in a game that's supposed to be in a game that's supposed to have focus on deck building as the card game, but I mean it's only played in mono white, right? Or if the mana supports it, maybe a dual color deck with like a splash on only dual lands. But the card is really insane, so yeah. This will probably see play if white is playable. So that's a big if, but I mean white is kind of playable right now, so I wouldn't say that's unlikely that it's playable in the next format. So, but hopefully this isn't like a mainstay in every deck, because otherwise everybody's gonna be back on black again. And I mean, thing is, this is not very good against black, and black is definitely the best color right now, which means that maybe this is just straight up not playable. And in that case, who cares? I guess you can have it in the sideboard for red decks that will still push out red decks, I think, because red decks would probably lose against black decks because of shield red anyways. So we'll see what red has, really. Hard to say, but that is such an insane card. Holy shit. Planar Disruption, 2 mana, enchantment aura. You get to enchant an artifact, creature, or planeswalker, and that permanent can't attack or block, and it can't activate abilities. So pacifism, but for planeswalkers and artifacts, which is pretty good. Really strong pacifism, actually. Well, probably one of the best ones I've ever seen, actually. Yeah, this is really good. It might just be the best one I've ever seen, actually. It has a really wide range of permanents it can hit. That's kind of crazy. As a common, that's really insane. Not playable in standard, but you know what I mean. Looking good for draft, I guess. White is looking really good for draft, actually. Played in Onslaught. Affinity for artifacts, which means that you can discount this for each artifact on the battlefield that you control. And it costs 5 mana, and creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. So, unless there's a Might deck, not great. Porcelain Zealot, 4 mana, 2/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, a creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If that creature has Toxic, it's +2/+2. So really, really good and limited. But that's about it. But again, I don't know why I'm reviewing. I mean, I like kind of saying that something is good and limited because I do play limited sometimes. So I'll mention it if it's relevant. I doubt this is relevant, right? Creatures. So 2 mana instant, +2/+2 until end of turn for a creature. And equipped creatures gain indestructible. Actually, like really relevant and limited, but not constructed. Sinew Dancer. 1 mana, 1/1, 4 mana activate ability. You have to tap itself though. It taps itself. Tap target creature. Wow. And okay, so this is like overpriced as hell. And then Corrupted. So if they have 3 or more poison counters, it's a 1 mana tap ability. This card is really bad. But I might not even be playable unlimited, actually. This is like one of the worst tappers that I've seen. Jeez. But tappers are pretty good in limited, so what's to say this is also not playable? But I feel like it's hard to get poison counters. Jeez, it's like overcost. It's so overcosted. Like yeah, it's weird. But even like yeah, it has nothing going for it other than the tap ability. That's probably, I guess maybe Phyrexian Soldier is relevant. I don't know. 1 mana tap's really cheap. Yeah, but at that point in the game where they have 3 or more poison counters, you can probably spend 2 mana to tap, right? Like usually it would be like a 2 mana 1/2 with a 2 mana tap ability. Sure, it's not a 1-drop, but the tap ability is overall just cheaper. It's probably still playable, depending. But the format seems high power, so I don't even know if this is playable. The lower power level of a limited format, the better tap abilities get. And this seems like a high power limited format. And this is a very high cost tap ability, so I don't think I don't know if this. I think it's less playable on this side, but I could be wrong. We haven't seen enough. Sometimes you just need a 1-drop. Yeah, but 1 mana 1/1 no tax. Like at least the remember the Samurai Soldier one, the 1 mana flyer. Like at least that flies, you know. Like this is literally nothing. You're just hoping that it taps essentially later. Skrell Defector Might is a 1 mana legendary artifact creature. Legendary. Toxic 1, it can't block, and for Phyrexian white mana, and you tap this creature as well. Choose a color. Another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. So, like, really insane and limited, but other than that, not play one constructed, I think. Definitely not. Well, actually, maybe. It's hard to say. It could be. I don't know. I guess it could potentially be playable in standard. I don't know. Like, the deck would have to be something we've never seen before, so I can't really imagine that it would be right now, but somebody might build a deck with this in it, and then it could be good, I guess. 2 mana Skrelv Hive. Beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and make a 1/1 Might token. And as long as your opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. I mean, very slow. And it's at the beginning of your upkeep, which is, but I guess they can't block. No, it's pretty bad because beginning of your upkeep and can't block means that on your next turn, you're getting a 1/1 that essentially does nothing until the next turn. So it's actually, this is probably unplayable, like, completely. 1 mana, 1/2 Flying Vigilance. Well, there you go. If you want a 1-drop, but it's an uncommon, damn it. I was gonna say, if you want a 1-drop and limited, pick this thing, but it's an uncommon for some reason. Sure, it's fantastic, but how's this bad and gives lifelink? In constructed, this is like actually terrible. It gives lifelink if they have toxic, but again, how are you getting toxic? I mean, maybe, okay. The problem is I have no concept of how easy it is to give poison counters to your opponent in white, but it doesn't look like it's easy. It looks like it's very creature damage based, and I don't think right now we're in a removal heavy meta. I don't think you have time to use something like this, especially because they can't block and they can't attack the turn they come into play. So that you're essentially waiting 2 turns to attack with your first one. They can't block anyways, so you're not chump blocking. But maybe Skrelv Hive into wedding announcement is a thing. Like, I don't know. It could potentially happen, I guess, but I think this card is terrible. Like, I think this is completely unplayable. But maybe the sideboard in like specific matchups, I don't know. It could be a build around, but I haven't seen enough cards that support this to say whether or not it's good or not. It seems on face value, this is terrible. Like, this kind of effect without context is abysmal. With support, it could go up to like maybe good, but I don't think it's gonna be like insane. Like, it's never gonna be dominating some kind of, like, I don't know. This just does not seem good. Everything that's toxic, not that hard. Yeah, but you have to put. What about the old cards though? Like, what about the other white cards that I've seen play over time? Are you telling me all of those are suddenly irrelevant and are not better than playing toxic? Like, toxic doesn't cover everything. It's only one set, so you'd have to play a full deck with toxic. So you're telling me we're getting a set where you can create an entire deck with just the cards in it, which is potentially possible, but they would all have to be like really good cards. And so far, I wouldn't say that toxic cards are that good in white, at least, but maybe in dual color. But again, we don't have the context right now. We're starting in white, so I'll have a verdict on that when we finish the set. But it does seem to be really powerful, but I haven't seen toxic support that's that good, considering we have cards like Brotherhood's End and Loran. But it is pretty good against black decks. Like, I guess you're losing life, but you're getting a bunch of easy things to sack to invoke, so there's something there. Alright, Eternal Wanderer, I've already talked about this. This is a really good planeswalker. 6 mana, 5 loyalty. No more than 1 creature can attack Eternal Wanderer each combat. Exile up to 1 target creature or artifact. Return that creature to the battlefield. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. So essentially disabling an attacker or blocker until the end of the player's next end step, which is fantastic. It's like a stall type removal, temporary removal. And it hits artifacts too, which is great. And create a 2/2 for 0 Samurai creature token with double strike, which is good. And -4 is a pseudo sweeper, so each player chooses a creature. No, for each player, you choose a creature that player controls, and each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. So that's really good. Selective board wipe, but you leave them with one creature, which usually you don't really care about if you're in white. So, and your creature should beat them out if you both have creatures because you're picking accordingly. So I think this card's really good, but it's very slow. It depends on the metagame. If we're still considering a Grixis metagame, then this might not be very good. But and any other slower meta, this is gonna be very good. Vanish, yeah, I don't know Bitter Blossom, so you can't hit me with any context. Like I'm a zoomer. Vanish into eternity. Vanish into eternity. The spell costs 3 more to cast if it targets a creature. Exile target non-permanent. No. Oh wait. This can exile Planeswalker. Against control, it's pretty good. This surprisingly, this might see play, I guess. If control's a thing. I don't know. Veil of Assimilation. Well, what is Bitter Blossom? Just show me what it is, and then I can get some context. I don't know. 2 mana artifact. Whenever Veil of Assimilation or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, target creature you control gets +1/+1 vigilance until end of turn. So really good in the Might deck. Holy. Yeah, it's another support card for the Might deck, I guess, and that's pretty good. If you combine it with that other thing, you're basically getting +1/+1 vigilance every turn. But it's a lot of setup, and I feel like you know what? I'm starting to think that maybe we are going into control meta. If this is a deck, if it is a deck, it won't be a mainstay because we have Farewell in the metagame, and we also have temporary lockdown. So if any of these token decks start appearing, it's like the metagame is going to shift into control, and then these will never be in the meta longer than like a week or one tournament at most. So yeah, if these are a thing, the meta is just going to shift accordingly to beat it, and it will just get dominated. Like it'll have 0 chance to beat those decks. So yeah, this will never be a mainstay in the metagame. So yeah, I'm convinced the Might deck is just not playable. I think there's such easy counterplay to it. White Sun's Twilight, even Laurent, like White already has Farewell, Lockdown, and Laurent. Like it's done. It's just impossible. White Sun's Twilight, sorcery. So it costs 2 white and X, and you gain X life and create X/1/1 Phyrexia and Might tokens with Might tokens. And if X is 5 or more, destroy all creatures. So 7 mana sweeper. So destroy all other creatures, yeah. So 7 mana, you make 5 1/1s, destroy everything, and you gain 5 life. Like, that's really good value, but that's 7 mana, so I don't really see this card seeing play at all, but I mean, it's cool. I like it. It's just overcosted as hell. The problem is it's very counterproductive in the way that's unless you have a bunch of anthem effects. Like this is a control card, but it makes tokens that can't block. So unless you're sweeping, you're not really getting any defensive effects out of this other than to gain X life, but that gain X life is overcosted as hell. Like it's super overcosted. So this card is absolutely unplayable, I think, currently. Zealot's Conviction, 1 mana, flash, enchantment creature, enchantment aura. They get +1/+1 as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. It gets +1/+1 first strike, which is actually good, but I'm probably not playing on standard on. I think this is gonna do it for white, right? Yep, that is it for white. Overall thoughts: some very powerful stuff in here. A lot of really good removal spells. I think that's huge for white. No new sweeper, just maybe surprising. Actually, I'm hoping Scryfall has everything because I feel like it doesn't. Did I really go through everything? That can't be it, right? Am I wrong? I feel like that's. This doesn't seem like I went through that many cards. Let me calculate. It's actually possible to calculate. Scryfall has everything. Okay, so I think we're good. All right, impressions, like some really, really good creatures, like really solid creatures, some really good removal spells, a very heavy push into the might artifact that I don't think will pay off. Um, some equipment synergy, which I also don't think will pay off in standard. But I have yet to know about the other colors, so this is just evaluating white by itself. I like it. Overall, I like it. I think it's cool. It's got some cool stuff. I'm happy with it. I don't know. I didn't expect it to be. My expectations were pretty low overall for the set, so I guess anything will beat my expectations at this point. Oh, that's about it. Can move on to blue now.